This is the Sony 24mm f1.4 and it's $1,300.
That's a lot, but this is the Sigma 24mm f1.4 and it's only $800 and it matches that spec by spec, feature by feature.
It's a little bit larger.
72mm filter instead of 67.
But it does appear to have a lot of similar things. They both have this manual aperture ring that you can turn the click on and off. They have this programmable button on the lens, so they both have that. But aside from the outward appearances and obvious features, I'm sure that there will be differences. So we're going to take it through a 10-point test to see if the huge price difference is worth getting the Sony.
I'm going to nitpick these two lenses like crazy: sharpness, bokeh, video, autofocus. But first, let's tell them why these lenses are so important. I think 24mm is the focal length of 2022 because that's the focal length we all capture with our smartphones by default, right? That's what people are comfortable seeing. But your smartphones have smartphone quality. They can't get that incredibly deep bokeh you could get with a 24 f1.4 lens. Here's a snapshot of f1.4 showing that beautiful subject separation you get. At f2.8, significantly less subject separation. This is what you'd get with your f4 kit lens. f8 is about what you'd get with an APS-C kit lens. You don't have to shoot wide open, but it's powerful when you do.
I actually think it's a really nice, versatile focal length as well. If we're out on the town and I'm taking some pictures, some street photography, I can take food photography, I can get my food in the shot and you in the shot if we're out to dinner. So I like it as just a general shooting lens, even though it is pretty wide.
And it's a huge upgrade from your 24-70 f2.8 or your kit lens for things like night photography and astrophotography. It lets in 4 times more light than an f2.8 zoom. And that means your images are going to be about 4 times cleaner. For things like night photography, it is a huge upgrade. But let's see how they do in the tests. And now for our video autofocus test. I am filming this with the Sigma 24 f1.4 using the on-camera mic because I want to hear if you can hear the autofocus motor on the on-camera microphone. It's kind of the worst case scenario. I love using a 24 f1.4 for shooting video because people really like the sort of 3D effect you get from a wide angle fast lens. We are so accustomed to seeing this wide angle with FaceTime and other smartphone real-time videos, but seeing it with a little bit of professional bokeh is a pretty cool effect that I found viewers really like. However, third-party lenses often don't focus as fast as the native Sony lenses, which is why I wanted to try this out. I want to do a direct side-by-side comparison, so I have a metronome here, and I'm going to set this to pace myself so I can move back and forth at exactly the same time. This is weird, but it's about to get weirder. Enhance, freeze. Okay, it's way too close to see any difference, but in 4K with an A7S III zoomed in 200%, maybe the Sony's a tiny bit sharper. I think the Sigma front focused by just a bit. And now for the sharpness test. I took 240 megapixel pixel shift images, and now I'll zoom in 400%. So this is an outrageous amount of detail that you will never experience in the real world, but it will separate the men from the boys. We see the left, the Sony is a little bit sharper in the center than the Sigma. But what about the edges of the frame? At the very corners, the Sony holds on to the sharpness just a tiny bit better. We see they both suffer from some nasty color shift, but the Sigma is a little bit worse. What about bokeh and the out of focus part of the frame? They both seem good. They both have very natural, smooth bokeh. For sharpness, the Sony wins by just a hair. In the real world, I never saw any sharpness differences. The Sigma always looked incredibly sharp. So this is a win for the Sony, only if you are the biggest of pixel peepers. Our backlit portrait test checks for flaring, contrast, and chromatic aberration. For flaring, you can see the two lenses are very similar. They both have some amount of bloom around the light, and they both have some green flaring off of here. But to my eye, the Sigma is a little bit cleaner. I can make out more of this shape. There's just generally less blooming, and the face seems a little bit darker, which it should be. Zooming in on the eye to check for contrast, they look pretty similar, though the Sony has more of a purplish cast from bouncing that backlighting around the lens. Checking chromatic aberration, this colored fringing around these backlit hairs To my eye, the Sony does much better. It's much smoother. The Sigma's chromatic aberration is pretty rough. Overall, for these tests, I have to call it a tie. The Sigma was better for contrast, but the Sony was better for chromatic aberration. Landscape photographers sometimes shoot directly into the sun with the highest possible f-stop. This creates this cool starburst effect with 2 rays for every aperture blade. They both have 22 rays, 11 aperture blades. They're both very clean. The Sigma has this purple blob here, while the Sony has more general sort of rainbowish discoloration. It's very close. I have to call it a tie. It's a matter of personal preference. And now for astrophotography, but first a demonstration of why you want an f1.4 prime lens for astrophotography. Let's zoom in at f1.4. This is the amount of noise you get with basically the fastest lens you can buy. If you shot with your f2.8 prime, this is the amount of noise you'd see. It gathers 1/4 the light as f1.4, so of course it's noisier. If you have an f4 zoom, this is the amount of noise you would see. Zooming in, the Sony seems just a little bit sharper, but you can see the coma is a little bit more irregular than it is on the Sigma. Searching throughout the frame, I see places where the Sigma is sharper and places where the Sony is sharper, so it's very close to a tie. For the maximum magnification test, I got as close as I could while manually focused at the minimum focusing distance, and the results, they seem about the same. It's a tie.
It's pretty much a tie. Of course, there are things that are better about the Sony and things that are better about the Sigma, but they're both great lenses and you can't go wrong. If you're looking to save some money, of course, go with the Sigma. It's like $500 less expensive, but if you want to stay in the Sony system, you want to get Sony professional services, there are advantages to sticking with the name brand.
There's an advantage to having 500 more bucks in your pocket too.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like these. Leave a comment down below if you have a suggestion for a new test on these lenses or another video. And thanks for watching.
And we have the review for the Sigma 20mm f1.4 coming out soon. Subscribe to see that. Bye.